I'm going to tell you some useful tips about segmented bar graphs using data and graphs found on pages 27 and 29 in your text about the Titanic. First of all, I want you to notice that there are 711 total that were alive in the Titanic in 1490 that died. If we tried to just make some kind of a graph or bar chart or so forth, just comparing the numbers in each of these categories, first, second, and third class and crew, that died and that survived, it wouldn't tell us a whole lot because we're comparing unlike groups. So when you're comparing unlike groups, you always want to compare their relative frequencies or the percentages in each category. So that's what is being done here. So notice that all the numbers we're going to be dealing with are these percentages. Now I want you to notice that these two bars are exactly the same height. And they're exactly the same height because they each represent 100% of the people in each category. And then they're broken down by percentages into segments. So if we look here, we'll see that we have a legend over to the side here. So if we start out with the crew being at the base here, the crew represents 29.8% of the data here. Now if we put these two together here, 25 and 29.8, we get 34.8, I'm sorry, 54.8, and that would be our boundary line right here, would be the 54.8. So when we add the 25 to the 29.8, we see where the next bar ends. Then we would, in the third bar, the boundary line, we would add another 16.6%, which gets us to about 570, I don't know, 71 around. I'm not going to do that in my head. And then we have our last category, which is the 28.6%. And sometimes it's helpful to actually label that. Notice that there is a bar here labeling that these are those who survived. And we have a legend here labeled to tell us what each of the categories means. Now then we go down to those who didn't survive, and notice that we have 45.2 in this category, 35.4 in this category, and then here's our 11.2 for the second class passengers and our 8.2 for the first class. So you'll notice that the categories are very different. I want you to notice this important phrase at the bottom: similar size segments equals independence. In other words, if all of the peach color, the purple color, the pink, and the blue colors in these bars were about the same size, we would say that the two variables, survival and passenger status, or yeah, I guess that would be a good way to say it, passenger status, first, second, third class, or crew, were independent of each other. In other words, it really didn't matter what category of passenger you were, about the same percentage of people survived or didn't survive the Titanic. But clearly that's not the case. Clearly we see that a much higher percentage of the crew died than survived, and a much higher percentage of the first class passengers survived than died. So when we go to compare these two, we would want to comment on those differences. So these are clearly not independent variables. They are associated or they are dependent on each other. So this is a really important tool, segmented bar graphs, for comparing two categorical variables, the relationship between two categorical variables. So make sure that you are able to construct a segmented bar graph.